Welcome to the deep dive. We've gone through your stack of sources,
Oh,
intensely focused on leadership, creativity, and this huge need to navigate change. And we're just jumping straight into the deep end today.
yeah. And it was hard to miss the common thread running through all of this material. What your sources overwhelmingly suggest is that the greatest threat for, say, a mission-driven leader today, it isn't always a lack of money. It's not external opposition.
It's something much quieter.
Exactly. It's familiarity.
That is the quiet danger, right?
Yeah.
The danger of just doing what has always worked long after it's stopped getting results for the people you're trying to serve. And you have to think about it. The ground is literally shifting under our feet.
Oh, absolutely.
Communities are fragmenting, complexity is just skyrocketing, and trying to use a 5-year-old blueprint for today's challenges, that's just a recipe for irrelevance.
It creates this sort of death spiral of diminishing returns. We see it all the time. Leaders are clinging to, say, an annual conference format that used to get 500 people, but now it only draws 50, and they're wondering why the budget is shrinking and their staff is just, demoralized. They're confusing historical success with a guarantee of future success.
So our mission today is pretty clear. We're going to unpack why innovation isn't some secular idea that's intruding on faith. It's not an optional luxury.
No. The sources make this powerful case that innovation is in fact a theological reality. They call it a core leadership competency that you just have to lead faithfully in this world.
Okay, so to start, we have to tackle a really big limiting assumption.
A huge one. Too many leaders, they sort of compartmentalize creativity. They think it belongs over in tech startups or, corporate boardrooms.
And the belief is that faith-shaped leadership is really just about preservation, protecting and repeating tradition over and over.
And that belief, it quietly robs leaders of one of their most powerful God-given capacities. It sets up this false choice,
A false dichotomy, that somehow innovation is the enemy of faithfulness. But what we're seeing is that the opposite is true. Adaptability, creativity.
Yeah.
These are often the clearest signs of faithful stewardship in a world that's always changing.
And this is where we find some really surprising biblical evidence that creativity isn't just a useful talent. It's actually a spiritual endowment.
Okay, let's go there. Exodus 31. This is where it gets really interesting for anyone in leadership. God commissions Bezalel and Oholiab to build the tabernacle.
Right.
And what does Scripture say filled them? It's not just wisdom or understanding. It explicitly says they were filled by God's Spirit with skill, intelligence, and artistic craftsmanship.
This is so profoundly theological. God gifted them creative genius for a very practical, logistical, architectural purpose.
Their creativity wasn't just decorative.
Not at all. It was essential to fulfilling God's purpose in a new mobile context. Building that tabernacle demanded innovative solutions that they had literally never existed before.
So if we connect that to leadership today, their physical craftsmanship, their ability to, cut stone and weave cloth, that's kind of like our strategic and organizational craftsmanship.
Yes. It's the ability to design a new structure for ministry, or create an innovative outreach program, or restructure a nonprofit's funding model. It is practical creativity tied to a purpose.
The challenge we're facing then is this really narrow understanding of innovation, one that sees creativity and new thinking as risky, distracting, or spiritually suspect.
Exactly that. And that view causes us to cling to familiar programs long after they've faded.
And here's the irony that the sources kept pointing out. In this effort to remain faithful to the past, leaders resist the very adaptability that faith requires. And they risk that one core threat we started with.
Irrelevance.
Irrelevance in the present. So let's dig a little deeper. If innovation is a sacred calling, where does that capacity even come from?
Well, you have to go all the way back to the origin story in Genesis. The Bible doesn't open with a doctrine or a rule. It opens with an act of creation.
God is creator.
Yeah. First and foremost, the Hebrew word is bara, to bring forth what did not exist before. So from the very beginning, innovation is just foundational to God's nature.
And we, humanity, made in God's image, what theologians call the imago Dei.
That's it.
That phrase means we are literally made to reflect God's image, to be creative beings, co-stewards. Our first leadership assignment wasn't bureaucracy, it was naming the animals.
An act of discernment and imagination.
Exactly. So leading is about stewarding potential,
Yes.
recognizing what could be, not just preserving what has been.
And we absolutely have to address this fear, this pervasive fear among leaders that adaptability means instability. This worry that if you change your methods, you are somehow compromising eternal truth.
Yeah, I can almost hear a leader pushing back right now saying, but God is unchanging, right? Hebrews 13:8 says Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So how do we reconcile that with a mandate to innovate?
That is a brilliant question, and it's really the hinge point for this whole deep dive. We reconcile it by separating character from method. God is unchanging in his character. He is eternally faithful, just, loving. But Scripture shows us a God who is remarkably adaptive in his method, in his delivery.
You see it unfolding throughout history. God speaks to Moses through a burning bush. He communicates through these complex covenants. He sends prophets.
And then, most profoundly, speaks through the incarnation, the physical person of Christ, and finally through the church, empowered by the Spirit.
So the core truth, redemption, reconciliation, that stays consistent.
Absolutely. But the delivery system evolves dramatically based on human context and need. So adaptation, in this sense, it isn't theological drift. It's faithfulness expressed with wisdom.
So leaders are confusing the tradition, the delivery system, with the actual truth.
That's it. And that refusal to adapt is usually a symptom of fear, not a mark of orthodoxy.
Okay, so if that's the foundation, what does this creativity look like on a Monday morning? It means creativity isn't about, chasing the next new thing or just self-expression. It's about faithful stewardship.
It's about a responsive multiplication of the resources and potential we've been given. And for that, we have to turn to the really sobering framework of the parable of the talents in Matthew 25.
Right. That parable is so instructive because the third servant, the one who buried his talent,
Yeah.
he wasn't condemned for being immoral.
No, not at all. He was condemned for passivity, for immobility, a refusal to leverage the opportunity he was given. And what drove him? Fear.
So the key takeaway for any organizational leader is huge. Faithfulness is defined by responsible multiplication, not just by avoiding risk. The faithful servants didn't play it safe. They took calculated risks and they multiplied what was entrusted to them.
Which brings us directly to a crucial definition. True innovation isn't reckless experimentation.
No.
It is disciplined creativity in service of a clear mission. Discipline is the anchor. It separates real innovation from just distraction.
But wait, doesn't that emphasis on multiplication maybe encourage some reckless behavior? I mean, how do we balance that risk-taking with being responsible, especially when you're stewarding people's time or their money, their trust? Where do the sources draw that line?
The line is drawn at alignment. Recklessness is when leaders chase high risk for low or unclear alignment with the mission.
Oh.
Disciplined innovation means being a good steward of all your resources, your influence, time, energy, and mission focus. If an initiative doesn't serve the core purpose, it's a distraction. It doesn't matter how new or exciting it is.
This is so critical. For example, it means developing outreach methods that meet people where they actually are today, on social media and community spaces, dealing with today's pressures, not where tradition assumes they should be or where they were 5 years ago.
Exactly. This is the necessary discipline. You have to ask not just, does this work, but does this align with why we exist? That anchors every decision firmly in the mission.
So that creativity actually serves the ultimate purpose instead of distracting from it.
Now, if we connect this to the bigger picture, leading in a dynamic world requires constant, purposeful problem solving. And to do that, you have to be able to distinguish between two fundamental types of challenges.
And this is that critical distinction, technical versus adaptive challenges.
Right.
Technical problems have known solutions. You can manage them with what you already know. Fixing a broken light bulb, upgrading accounting software, you just apply existing knowledge.
But adaptive challenges, those are the problems that demand new thinking. They require creativity and strategic recalibration from the whole team.
These are the complex realities. Navigating irreversible cultural shifts, dealing with generational changes, tackling ethical dilemmas where there's no easy answer.
And trying to apply yesterday's technical fixes to today's adaptive realities is exactly why organizations stagnate.
And biblical figures were constantly navigating these adaptive challenges. I mean, you see Moses adapting governance structures, delegating responsibilities in Exodus 18. That wasn't a technical fix. He was redesigning the entire leadership structure to deal with overwhelming growth.
And Jesus, the ultimate adaptive leader, modeled this flexibility constantly. He healed differently every single time, with touch, with mud, with just words. He used context-specific parables, new wine, new wineskins.
illustrating that living movements need structures that can actually hold them. And sometimes those new structures look nothing like the old ones.
And don't forget Paul. In his missionary work, he was a master of cultural adaptation. He became all things to all people.
Right, he adapted his language and his methods without compromising the core truth. Speaking to Greeks about their unknown gods, to Jews using the prophets.
Yeah.
That strategic adaptation, that's kingdom innovation in action.
So how do we operationalize this? The source material gives us a really concrete tool for you. It's called the innovation matrix. It's a way to guide that disciplined creativity we were talking about and avoid the busyness traps.
Okay, so disciplined innovation requires measuring every potential initiative along two axes before you pour resources into it.
The first axis is impact. You're measuring the tangible, measurable difference this idea will make. Is it actually moving the needle?
And the second axis is purpose alignment. How closely does this initiative align with your core mission and values? Does it serve why you exist?
It's a powerful filter. You want to focus all your energy on the initiatives that fall into that sweet spot. High impact, high alignment. That's where you innovate and multiply effectively.
And conversely, you have those initiatives that are high alignment but have low impact. Maybe they feel good or they're easy or they serve an older, shrinking group.
Those are the busyness traps. They eat up valuable time and energy without really advancing the mission, and those need to be carefully tabled or just discarded.
Let's make that really specific. Say your organization launches a new social media push. It might feel high alignment because your mission is to communicate a message. But if after 6 months you see it's only getting 10 views and no real engagement.
That's a low-impact activity, a perfect busyness trap. It needs to be reevaluated or cut so you can free up that staff time for something that will have a genuine impact.
Right. This framework ensures creativity is intentional and measured. It turns an abstract vision into a disciplined path forward. It replaces impulse with strategy.
What really stands out as we close this is how consistently your sources reiterate this point. Innovation is not a compromise or a distraction from spiritual depth. It is often the very path through which that depth is revealed in our current context.
You are called to lead not with fear, but with courage and creativity. And that creativity has to be anchored squarely in purpose.
Yeah, that refusal to engage, it doesn't preserve tradition, it just quietly abandons influence and impact. The invitation here is to reclaim innovation as a spiritual mandate, an act of obedience and hope in this ever-moving world.
So we'll leave you with this powerful challenge that echoes through all the source material, quoting God's promise and challenge from Isaiah 43:99.
See, I'm doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?
The final question for you is this. Are you prepared to lead not just with conviction, but with creative courage? And are you willing to perceive the new work God is doing? Or will you remain stuck defending yesterday's success, risking that slow, quiet danger of familiarity? Go lead and go create.